my fellow comic book collectors. It's Alan, the Comic Collector Geek, and this is the Wednesday video where I answer your questions. I did a lot of research for this video, so it should be an interesting one. I got a lot of books to show as well, so let's get right into it. The first question comes from K. Munin. Since these topics came up in your April 8th live stream, what are your favorite Wolverine covers? What are the best comics or deals you've gotten when picking in dollar bins? As always, thank you for your insight and knowledge. Okay, so I want to show you my favorite Wolverine covers. And there's a couple that I was trying to find, but I couldn't find. One is the Mr. Fix-It cover with the Hulk. I couldn't find that. I was like looking through my collection. I have no idea where it is. It's somewhere, but I just don't know where. But let's get into some of my favorites. We'll start with my absolute favorite right after that. This is Hulk 181, first cover appearance of Wolverine. And I always liked this cover. I thought it really captures the spirit of Wolverine, him jumping and kind of coming down onto Hulk. I just think that's just a really great action-y pose, and it really does get the full Wolverine effect. So I just always love this cover, and it's a great way for him to make his appearance in the beginning. So Incredible Hulk 181 from 1974, and it's a Herb Trimpe cover. Yeah, so that's the first one. Then we're going to get into, I always thought this was a kind of classic cover. This is Wolverine number 10, and it's the first battle between Sabretooth and Wolverine. I just thought this was a really great cover. You know, it's always good to see your heroes getting beaten up, I guess, because you want to find out if they're going to survive it. So it's a good one for that. And this one I always like too. This is Wolverine number 1. And this is just a really cool cover. It's like, you know, it kind of shows the power of Wolverine, where he's basically standing on a pile of bodies. It's pretty crazy, you know, and I just like the moon, and like his eyes, he looks kind of crazed. I don't know, it's a great cover. So this is Wolverine number 1. And one of the ones that I always kind of, whenever I think of Wolverine, actually I think of this cover. And it's Hulk, actually. It's a Hulk book, Hulk 340. And the reason I like it is you got Wolverine flashing his claws, but you get the reflection of who he's after, and he's after the Hulk in this case. Just a really great Todd McFarlane cover, and just a classic cover. I got this for 20 bucks, so I was quite happy. Put 60, but he sold it to me for 20 bucks. So I was quite happy. It's a VF plus copy. So that was really cool. So those are my favorite Wolverine covers. There's a few others that I'd say are in there, but I don't have them handy. So now, what are the best comics or deals you've ever gotten when picking dollar bins? I really don't pick dollar bins that often, and generally like the comics that I find maybe worth like $10-$20 really is like a really great find in a comic dollar bin. I'm just trying to think. I did pick up, you know, that shoebox collection, which is kind of like dollar bin, which had like reprint of Star Wars number 1, and it had a bunch of early Star Wars ones, and including a price variant, Canadian price variant, which was a fairly expensive book. In terms of dollar bins, though, I'm just trying to think. As I said, nothing really that memorable. Like I you know, this last time that I went to the Ottawa convention, I did find for 20 bucks, not dollar, the first appearance of Wendy the Witch, the Good Witch. But that's the best that I can do. I don't really do that well in terms of going through dollar bins and finding stuff. I never really had the patience to go through dollar bins either. Though I do remember in the 90s getting like the first Black Cat and Dracula number 1, Tomb of Dracula number 1 in a dollar bin. Those were dollar bin books. So, but I paid $2 for the Tomb of Dracula. So it wasn't really $1. And I paid, I think it was like $2 or $3 for the first Black Cat. So not quite dollar bin, but definitely cheap for those books. So I hope that answers your question. The next question comes from Mike Swintel. And the question is, could you possibly give a list of titles of some independent #1 comics that have come out in the last few years that we might want to invest in as collectibles? Okay, so I'm going to show you a few. Now that I kind of came up with a few titles on that. Let me just pull them all out here. The first is Department of Truth. I think Department of Truth, and I like this copy of it. This is the first first issue of Department of Truth, and it's one where I just like it, just the cover itself. This is the Jenny Frison cover, and it's the B variant. So it's not the original #1 A cover. I have that as well, but I don't have it slabbed. I actually deliberately got this one slabbed because I really like this cover. Now this book you can pick up probably for 50 bucks. It's like really affordable. It's one where it kind of went through the roof at one point and then has since dropped very, very considerably. But it is one that I could see them making a TV series about it. It's kind of like X-Files in many ways. And it could be a great TV series. So, and he's a really respected writer, James Tynion. So I could see this, getting optioned and them doing something with it. So that would be the first one. That's from 2020. Another one, I believe this has been optioned, and I'm just going to show you some of the various covers from it, is Stray Dogs. I really like Stray Dogs. So I like the fact that they did all these homage covers to various horror movies. I think this is Tales from the Crypt or Creepshow. One of those. I always get those two mixed up in terms of the names. And then we got Stray Dogs, and this is Evil Dead, I believe. And then we got Stray Dogs, another homage. I think this isn't this is it Silence of the Lambs or Saw or one of those? I don't know what it is. I'm not really good at my my horror movie covers, posters, I should say. I think this is the Thing though. And then this one's more obvious, like Friday the 13th. Yeah, so that's some of the various variant covers, and those are all cheap. You can pick those up for a couple bucks. They're really affordable. Even getting the original A cover, you can probably pick this up for about $60-$70. I'm not sure. I haven't bought it recently, so I don't know what the prices are like. But Stray Dogs, very affordable, good spec. I know that it has been optioned. And they've recently come out with a new series called Feral, and Feral #1 just dropped maybe a couple weeks ago. So I'd recommend that as well. And the story for Stray Dogs is excellent. It's really, really well done. Definitely worth getting, even if it doesn't become valuable. I think any story that's really good will become valuable in the long term. So I think it's a worthwhile one to get. So Stray Dogs. Some other titles is Something is Killing the Children, Nice Home in the Lake, and Goon would be another one that I really recommend. If they ever do something with Goon, which is, they've been trying to do something with that for the longest time, definitely one I would recommend getting, because I think has a lot of potential. So Goon #1 from Avatar Press. You can also get is it Dreamwalker? I think Dreamwalker #2, I believe it is, which is the first appearance of Goon. That's another book. That's a bit pricey, but yeah, actually even Goon #1's pricey. There are ones that people will gravitate to that are fans of the franchise of Goon, and they generally go for quite a lot of money because people really do like them. And even though the general, maybe mass population doesn't know about Goon, it's one that the fans of Goon really do collect and will pay up for. So definitely one to check out. Another one to check out would be Invincible. It's probably too late to spec on that, but there, there might be still opportunities there. Pretty good story, and worthy of checking out. Okay. Next question comes from Tommy Bell. How do you feel about the value of comic books that have bonus items intact versus not? For example, an old 3D comic with or without glasses, still stapled to the spine. Another example would be old Mad magazine that has a record still attached to the spine. I feel like pricing is vague in this area. Bonus question: should there be any issues with Mad magazines that have the back cover folded? Thanks. Okay, so just to answer all those questions, generally, if it has the glasses versus not have the glasses, it's about half the value without the glasses. So it does become a green label, and generally green labels sell for about half. Makes it easy. The fold-in with the Mad actually would be considered like any other folded cover. If a cover is folded and has like a crease in that cover, well, that's going to impact the grade. Generally, you can't get above a 4 if you have a major crease down the middle of a comic. So that's generally, like, it's actually pretty easy to value them because of that. Either they're green labels or they're just poor condition, and that's how you grade them and value them, actually. So I know it seems like, it should be like, are the glasses worth this much or that much? It's really like a green label kind of thing. And I've seen it even with the raw books. It's usually half the value for the glasses, even though the glasses can be quite rare. So good example of that is Batman 1 with the glasses will generally, Batman 3D, I should say, with the glasses is quite rare. And, people will pay up for those glasses. But generally, as I said, it's that green label kind of effect. It's basically double. Next question comes from Stepify, or Steven. Hi, Alan. My question is for you. When did Dell Four Color Comics become Gold Key Comics? Did Dell Four Color transition to Gold Key or cease operations? What is the relationship, if there was any, between Dell Four Color and Gold Key? Lastly, could you explain the coding and numbering system used by Dell Four Color and Gold Key Comics? Who was in overall control of of Dell Four Color and Gold Key? When did Gold Key Comics cease operations? Did they get bought out by anyone? Thank you. Wow. that's a lot of questions, and I got a lot of answers for it. So yeah, so that was a lot of research that I had to do for that. I'm going to start by explaining a little bit about Four Color. So Dell Four Color ran from 1938 to 1962. It actually started out with a short run series, and then it ran into a second series that lasted many, many issues, like over 1,000 issues. And it would be published multiple issues per month. And really, the numbering system was based on what issue number was being produced. Sometimes they said that some of the numbers were skipped, but for the most part, it was just the issue number. So that's the Dell Four Color. It was probably the biggest, most notable, and most prolific title of from Dell, was the Four Color. It consisted of mostly like tryout titles. Like, it was kind of like Showcase in many ways. Like, when Uncle Scrooge made his first appearance there, I think Lassie, I think Twilight Zone, a whole bunch of titles made their first appearance in Dell Four Colors. And it was like they were just, a lot of TV series they would put inside of the Dell Four Colors. And what happened was, in 1962, so basically Dell had a partnership with Western publications, and that gave them the access to really produce a lot of these titles, like Hardy Boys or whatever it was, whatever the titles were. But that ended in 1962. Now, Western decided to go a different route, and it with publishing those things, and it published it through like its own company in-house called Gold Key Comics. Okay, so Gold Key Comics started in 1962, and their very first comic was Bugs Bunny. So Bugs Bunny and Disney and all those appeared in Dell, but they basically continued on those titles, and sometimes even the numbering, in Gold Key. So this is Showtime Bugs Bunny. This is the very first Gold Key comic. And let me just continue on that story. Most of the talent that worked at Dell when they were working with all these titles shifted over to Gold Key. so you got Western Comics is the kind of big company. Then Gold Key is the publishing line for these comic books that are like, different series. So you had like Mission Impossible, Ben Casey, Brooks Law, Dr. Killdeer, Beach Blanket Bingo. I wrote notes because I couldn't remember all these names. And long-lasting titles called... so these were under Dell, and then that continued beyond that switch over from Western Comics. So what happened was certain titles went to Gold Key, and certain titles stayed within Dell, and they actually lasted another 11 years. So Dell folded in 1973. And all those former titles went over to Gold Key at that point. So there was a few that switched over, like Bugs Bunny and Disney's, all those ones. They switched over to Gold Key in 1962 with when the relationship between Dell and Western ended. But certain titles that I mentioned, others were like Ghost Stories, Combat, Ponytail, those all stayed with Dell, and they went for another 11 years under Dell. So hope that makes sense. And Dell tried to kind of go somewhere with books. They created a book called Nuclear, Brain Boy. They even created like these Universal Monster ones that were where the Universal Monsters were heroes. and it was totally panned because it was terrible. So they really tried, but they didn't really do that well, and eventually they collapsed, as I said, 11 years later in 1973. Now, Gold Key Comics, basically, as I said, it was created by its parent company, Western Publishing Company, and it was basically a way to bring the publishing in-house rather than outsourcing it to Dell. Now, hoping to make they made a few big mistakes too. So they wanted to make the books much more kid-friendly. They wanted to make them much more traditional. And they even actually did things like really experimental things, like eliminating panel borders, and they tried to make the artwork evenly edged and no bordered like container lines. It was sort of a weird thing that they did in the early issues of Gold Key. Now, within a year, though, they realized that format didn't work, and they went back to borders and balloons and all that kind of stuff, like word balloons. In 1978, though, or 1979, sorry, Western ceased being an independent company and was bought by Mattel. The new management stopped selling returnable comics, okay, at newsstands, and preferred creating these like non-returnable polybagged books, okay? And this was a big mistake. So what ended up happening was they thought, oh, we can get around this whole change, because if you think about it, 1979 is when you get comics moving from the newsstand into comic stores, okay? And so Gold Key was trying to get around that whole issue and still maintain their market share. So they wanted to get into drugstores, into convenience stores and stuff like that in these kind of polybag format. And it kind of failed, because what was happening was they would get, shops didn't really like the fact that they weren't returnable, and often they would get spikes in their like sales and then drops. So it just wouldn't be consistent in terms of the demands of buyers. So that format actually killed Gold Key. And so by the early 80s, things were kind of, they actually switched it again, and they did these kind of three books in one set kind of thing in polybags. And they did it under a new title called Whitman, where you get the Whitman variants with the three, it was like a polybag with 3 comics inside. And a lot of the books that I have from when I was a kid were those Whitman variants. And so, as I said, this kind of really messed up things. They just basically, they just fell apart. So eventually early arrangements were made to distribute these releases to the national network of comic book stores. Western also prepared a prospectus of early 80s for a deluxe Carl Barks reprint project aimed at the collector market that was never published. In December of 1983, the struggling Mattel sold Western Publishing to a real estate investor, Richard A. Bremstein. Bremstein closed the Western's comic book publishing division in 1984. So that ended Gold Key. So Gold Key ceased to exist after 1984. Now, there were a few times where they tried to bring it back. That was really, it sort of died in 1984. And it was just because of bad decisions that they made, where they really they probably should have stuck with pushing things to the comic book stores, but they failed. It just sort of fell apart. So that's the story of Dell Four Color and also Gold Key. But you also asked about how you figure out the numbering in Gold Key. Well, I'll show you on a couple books. So the first one is back to this one. This is the very first Gold Key comic. So if you look at Gold Key comics, I might have to take this one out so it can be a little bit more visible. Actually, it's kind of a grungy bag. I should change the bag anyways. This is kind of grungy. Okay. So you'll see right up here, there's a number. And the first 5 digits, I'm not really sure what those mean, but they're just, you can ignore them for the most part. It's just the issue number. And then these last 3 digits, you see a 2, 1, and a 0. Now the first digit represents the year. So this is 1962 because that's a 2, okay? The next 2 digits represent the month. This would be October of 1962 because 10, okay? so 62, and which not a really great numbering system if you think about it, because then like every decade you're like, what year is this? But that's the numbering system, and this is the back. I'll show you that one. And so we can try that again, that same experiment with this one. We got, this is Doc Savage number 1. And we got the first 5 digits, doesn't really mean anything. You see a 6 and 11. So this 6 means that it came out in 1966. The 11 means November. So, and if you look at the My Comic Shop thing, it says 1966. So that's, the system works, is what I'm saying. So, yeah, that's the system. It's kind of a weird one, but that's the way it works. I don't know. I didn't make the system. So yeah, that's Gold Key's numbering system. Okay, so hope you like that answer. Okay, next question comes from Matt Atkinson. For raw books, do you prefer when people use the old school G, VG, F, and VF system, or the CGC number system when they describe comics or put comics up for sale? At first, I actually preferred the numbering system. I just thought it was much more intuitive. I like the idea of 1 through 10, like, or that whole kind of numbering system. I had to learn the actual letters, the letter system, because when I was a kid, I just remember it being like low, mid, and high. that was the grading system, and it was pretty vague. I'm going to quickly teach people how to convert the letters to the numbers. So the way it works is you got G, which is a 2-0. And if it's a minus, you can go by whatever the next grade point is lower than that. So it would be a 1.8. And if it's G plus, then it becomes a 2.5. So that makes sense, right? So 1.8 is that G minus, and plus is 2.5. Now, if you're trying to find out what's the next grade, which is a 3, it's in between a G and a VG. So a VG is a 4. VF is, or F is 6. VF is 8. And near mint is 9. Okay, so those are all the different letters. Then when is a grade between 2 grades, so we got a G, and then we got a VG, which is a 4. Well, what's between that? A 3, right? So what the way that they would denote it with the letters is good VG. so it's G VG, if that makes sense. That's in between the 2, so it's like a 3. I hope I'm not confusing anyone. There's lower grades, which are fair and poor. poor is usually a 0.5. Fair is a 1. So if you want to have a 1.5, all you do is you say fine G, FG, which is fine good. So it's like in between, which is a 1.5. So those are all the, that's the explanations. So you can sort of get all the grade points by using the letter system to convert to the number system using those methods. I don't know. I hope that explains it. Actually, I think a NM, which is near mint, is it's a 9. Is that right? Yeah. I always get a little bit confused at the top grades. Mint is a 9.4, and near mint plus is 9.6, 9.8 range. It's weird at the top, but yeah, that's the method. Hopefully it makes sense. Actually, yeah. And then near mint is like a 9.2. I think that's how it works. So yeah, it's weird at the top. It's weird at the top. Hopefully I didn't confuse anyone. The next question, I'm just gonna leave it at that, is from Jay Ogilvy. Question for you. I have a Sugar and Spike #1 with a lot of water damage. According to Overstreet, the comic is scarce. Should I slab it or not? I don't know if I have it restored. I don't know to have it restored. So here's the thing with that book, even a 0.5, which is the lowest grade, where it's not even complete, goes for about $325. So any book that is over that $100 range is probably worth getting it slabbed. But it is a rare book. There's only 35 on the census, and 35 universal labels and 38 altogether. So it's a fairly rare book. 1956, kind of a hard one to find because it's in that time period where it's early code and not many of those books were printed. So the next thing is at a 2.0, it sells for $1,000. And you can still get, even with heavy water damage, you can still get a 2.0. The highest grade for Sugar and Spike is actually an 8.0. There's not many high grades for it, like super high grades. And there's only one at an 8.0. And that sells for about almost $5,000. The last sale was actually in 2015 for $4,780 for an 8.0. So it's a book that is worth getting graded. Now, there is ways of removing water damage. A couple ways. One is this is where you get a professional restorer to not like doing restoration but conservation. But they're called restorers. So I'm just using the terminology. And what they can do is they can soak it. I know it sounds crazy, but they can soak it and they'll actually remove the water damage, and then they press it out. And it actually can go back to looking like a flat comic. I've seen this work where you can actually get the book flat. As long as the water damage hasn't caused any damage to the paper or any ticks or like breaks in the paper, you should be fine. And you can actually get a fairly high grade at that point. So it might be worth doing. So you can look into that as well. But definitely a book that's worthy of slabbing because just the value of it. The next question comes from Quasi Terrible. Hey Alan, I was wondering if you had or knew of any cool books that never made it to newsstand or a comic book shop. Books like that came packaged in with a video game or a movie, or a book like that you had to mail away for. There's a few. Okay, so the ones that I'm thinking of would be the ones like that came in the He-Man action figures. There was like comics that would come in there, and actually one of those has the very first appearance of He-Man in comics, and there's also the very first Bruce Timm artwork in one of those. So very cool books. I actually have those. I should have grabbed them, but I didn't. I forgot. So, but those are pretty cool. Those little mini comics, and those came in with the toys. Another thing that is cool is Sonic the Hedgehog. Was originally printed as newspaper print and was not in comics. Now, they actually did produce a comic like Justice League Europe that has that Sonic the Hedgehog first appearance, the newspaper print version, inserted into Justice League Europe edition. So you can pick that up and get the first appearance of Sonic the Hedgehog. Those can actually go for quite a bit of money because there's a lot of Sonic the Hedgehog collectors out there. And I've seen people just cut them out and pretend that they're the original newsprinted versions because they look the same. Now, another one is one that I did bring, and I'll show it to you. And it is also a first appearance. And it's actually one where a lot of the time people will find this thing and not realize what they have. And if you're smart, you can actually, I picked this up for $10 and they can sell for about 1,000. So I'll show you what I mean, because there's a lot of Rick and Morty fans. And this book comes in the DVD. Now you have to buy season 1, okay? And you have to find a complete copy, okay? That's a big thing, because if you buy it first edition of this, it has to look like this, because there are, like, you know, various editions. So you want this one, okay? I'll show you the back. Okay, so that one, season 1. And if you buy that, you'll get the DVD. So you see the DVD, right? And it's the full season, right? So inside is a comic book. Little comic book, The Good Morty. And this is actually the very first appearance of Rick and Morty. So this little Good Morty, I've seen people get them graded and they can go for big money. So definitely one to look for, The Good Morty, okay? So, and the easiest way to get it is, as I said, buy a season 1 DVD, and you can probably pick it up. So that's the way I picked it up, and saved like big money on that, because people don't realize, and it's just a trick where you can find it. They're actually quite hard to find, these little DVD things, but sometimes you can find them. So good luck, happy hunting, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so those are some of the ones. There's actually also another first appearance and cool comic that didn't go to comic book shops, but it did go to bookshops, which was Avatar. Avatar was another one that was first printed as a book. So just wanted to think of. Now, this last question is interesting. So it's 2 questions. I'll just move this over because I got a bunch of stuff to show for this last question. And this one is really the one that you guys, I kind of want to leave this to the end because it is kind of the coolest question of the questions. Because I'm going to show you a whole bunch of books. So it's from Collier, and he wrote, "Show us your best Precode horror comics, and what do you think the total value of your comic collection is?" So, I don't know. I really don't know the value of my collection at this point. I used to guess like around 2 million, but I think since the comic boom has kind of busted, where it's no longer the big, it might be anywhere from 1 million to 2 million. It's kind of in that range. I have about 20 to 30,000 comics and magazines in my collection, and even the top 50, even after all the drops, still are worth over $300,000 for my top 50, and I have like 30,000, and I know I have at least 1,000, like $1,000 books. so you know, I think, you know, that based on all of that, I would say in that $1 to $2 million range, just because of the sheer volume of books. You know, there's a lot of, you know, these kind of mid-tier books that bring up the value. And also I have about probably 1 to 2,000, $300 to $500 books. So there's like a lot of value there. Just the number of slabs I have, like I was actually like doing some math with it. The number of slabs I have is almost 2,000. So I was thinking, okay, if the average slab, just the cost of grading is like $30, let's say. Well, then you take 30 times like 2,000. That's like $60,000 worth of just the slab value. What's inside the slab kind of matters. So that can add a lot of value. So I would say like the average was probably in the few $100 range. So, you know, it adds up pretty quickly. So that's another another thing. So I don't know, 1 to 2 million is just ballparking it. Okay, so let's get into the first part of that question, which is to show us the Precode horror comics. So I'm going to show you a ton of Precode horror comics. I actually was debating about showing certain books, but I decided against it because they're horror covers, but they're not horror titles. So these I'm being a little bit strict on the definition here, because some of the cool covers that are Precode horror covers are actually crime books. So I'm going to show you some pretty cool ones regardless, and we'll get right into it with one of my favorites. I used to put it behind me, is Black Cat Mystery Comics, and this is number 32, and it's a really cool one with the girl being sent to hell, basically, and the sign, you know, she sold her soul to the devil or whatever. And it's just the interesting thing about this comic is not the front. I know the front is pretty cool too, but it's just the contrast between the front and the back. So I'm going to show you. So Black Cat Mystery Comics, this weird, crazy cover. But on the back, you got Disney, Walt Disney Comics and Stories. It's the weirdest thing. I don't know. What a weird contrast. So why is there Walt Disney on the back of a Precode horror comics? But it is what it is. Okay, so that's the first one. Next one is a really cool one, the Fazetta cover, actually. This is Beware. I just like the girl in the red dress. This is Beware number 10. And it's got hanging panels inside. It's a really cool cover. I like these zombie-like characters, and they're pointing to the grave, and this girl's like freaking out. So it's kind of fun. And I generally go for the ones with pretty girls on it. And I actually did a top 10 list. And this book was on the top 10 list for Golden Age, hottest Golden Age books of the week. And I really liked it so much that I had to get a copy for myself. So this is Adventures into Weird Worlds, number 50. No, what number is it? Number 9. Number 9. Adventures into Weird Worlds, number 9. And I just think it's a really cool cover. It's a Russ Heath cover. And you got the girl putting on her makeup, and her date's coming up. He's like, oh my goodness. She's literally putting her face on. And I just think it's a classic. I just love it. And this is actually an interesting one because it's a early code. That's like the early code, Comic Code. It's before the actual Comic Code Authority, but it is an early code. This is from Atlas Comics, 1952. And then we got This Magazine is Haunted. It's just a really great, skeleton coming out of like the potion that this guy's making. It's really cool. I really like this title, actually. I'm going to show another one from this title. So that's a Sheldon Moldoff cover. And I'm not sure who did this cover, but it's a really cool skull cover. And it's another one from the same title. So This Magazine is Haunted. Just a really cool. And this is number 14? 14. Just a really cool skull cover with the burning flames and the bat. And I'm not sure what's going on. Like a guy's being brought into the eye, or I'm not sure what's going on there. And this weird guy with the top hat. I think he's like the narrator. Just a really cool skull cover. Flaming skull. And then we have Worlds of Fear. I really like this cover. I show this quite often, actually, because I like it so much. This is Worlds of Fear number 10, I believe. And it's a Norman Saunders cover. And just a really great, like, you know, his eyeballs have been removed. You can just see right into his skull. And you got all these floating eyes. It's just really creepy and cool. So yeah, that's from 1953. And then we have another really crazy cover is Weird Chills. You got this guy and he's getting poked in the eye. Like, oh, like it's actually piercing through his lip, this one little demon guy. And this other guy is going to hit him with a mallet in the eye. He's opened up his eye and he's hitting him with a mallet. This one always reminds me of Clockwork Orange. If you know the movie, you'll know the reference. Just a really crazy cover. This is Weird Chills number 2, and it's a Bernard Bailey cover. So, really cool, classic cover. Classic Injury to Eye cover. Hitler commits suicide story too. So it extra bonus crazy stuff going on. And this is one of my favorite from this title. And this title has a lot of great Skull covers and Good Girl covers. So this is Eerie, number 17. I just like the girl in the purple. I think she looks really great. This Eerie title, I don't know why, but they always have some girl in the corner. And a very headlight cover thing. I don't know why. But you got this skull guy coming out of the little, like, fortune teller's crystal ball. And she's like, oh, sort of startled. And it's always the same girl, basically. So yeah, just a really cool one. Eerie number 17. I really like this one. This is my favorite. I just like the girl, just the way that she's drawn. So Eerie number 17. And I'm not sure who did the cover. That's actually the last of the series. It only ran 17 issues. Another one that is kind of a classic, and one that most people like from this series, and I actually have the full run of the series, is a Ghost Comics. And this one is got the like hunchback, and you got the girl in the red dress in bondage. You can see that she's pinned to the ground, and you got the hero in the background trying to save her. Now, the thing that makes this a ghost comic is literally they always have a ghost on the cover. And you can see in the background, in the dark, you can see the eye and the nose and the mouth. There's a ghost. There's always some ghostly influence on the cover. So this is Ghost number 6, and it's considered to be the most popular. I actually like Ghost number 2 better, but I didn't bring it, but I wanted to show at least one of the covers. It's just that's a really famous one, and it's Maurice Whitman cover. He did all the covers for Ghost, actually. And now this is a classic horror cover, and it's Witch's Tales number 25. It's probably one of the more gruesome Precode horror covers. You got the guy, you know, this kind of Quasimodo-like guy. He's ringing the bell, and the clapper is a decapitated head. Now, this book was really at the end of the Precode horror era, and it's from 1954, June of 1954. So the code was not; it was only a few months later. So this is right at the end of the Precode horror era, and they were really upping their game in terms of the horrific covers. And this one does kind of push the boundaries. So it's a decapitated cover. It is a Howard Nostrand cover, or Nostrand. I always say Nostrand, but I guess it's Nostrand. So yeah, Nostrand. Tomato. Okay, so this next one is a really cool one. Another series that I really like. There's so many great covers in this one. I'm actually probably going to show a couple. This one is one in my next big unboxing. And I actually showed this earlier, but I'm going to show it again. This is Voodoo number 8. And I'm not sure who did the cover, but it is just a great, I like Good Girl art covers, and this is a great Good Girl art cover, plus a little bit of that horror element with her face, you know, with the skull. I think it's a skull mask, but it is definitely an interesting, kind of creepy cover. So yeah, so that's Voodoo number 8 from 1953. All right. Then we got Mystic, and this is one of those classic wedding covers. It's another Atlas comic, actually, number 21 from 1953, and it is a Bill Everett cover. It's just a great one. You know, you got the skeleton bride, and you got the headless headless groom, and he's carrying her over the threshold. It's just a really great honeymooner cover. It's the Honeymooners. So yeah, just kind of fun. And this couple's shocked when seeing them. It's just a fun one. I like a little bit of humor with my horror, I guess, and that has a bit of humor with it. Okay. This next one is another Atlas one. This is Mystery Tales, number 17 from 1954, and it's just this really buff, I don't know what's going on, he's like super buff, and he's got the girl in the red dress, and everyone's freaking out. It looks like he's coming through a movie screen or something. I'm not sure what's going on here. The movie house horror. It looks like he's coming through the movie screen with the girl. Just a really crazy skull cover. He's got these weird eyes on his skull. So just a cool one. I thought it's one that I liked. I don't know why. So it was a really interesting cover. Here's another Norman Saunders cover. I have to take it out of the bag. And this is Terror Unknown Worlds. So this is Unknown Worlds number 1. The title changed after this to Strange Stories from like it was like a really long title, like strange Stories from Another World or something like that. But yes, so they changed the title after this issue. So this is just number 1, and it's Unknown Worlds number 1, Norman Saunders cover from 1952. So yeah, and it's a great painted cover with the skeleton coming through the doorway. I really like it. Right. Then we have a Don Heck cover. And this is a great decapitated head cover and on the spike and flames. I like fire covers. So, and then the blood is dripping over the horrific. Just a really cool cover. You know, has a lot going for it. So this is horrific number 1 from 1953, a Don Heck cover. And it says sunken head cover, bullet in the head panels. So lots of fun stuff going on in this one. And now I do like when Precode horror meets Good Girl. So this is one of those. This is the Phantom Witch Doctor, and it was a one-shot. You got this beautiful girl on the cover, and you got this voodoo guy with a skull eyeballs. Like if you look at his eyes, they have like skulls in them. And it's just a really great cover, I think. This is Everett Raymond Kinsler cover and art, and it's the only issue from Avon 1952. I just love it. I think it's a great cover. Okay, another one that I used to always have on display. And this next one is the Black Tarantula. I just think this is a cool cover. It's just a cool cover. It was this issue that was reprinted and has the famous L.B. Cole Death Spider cover. But this one I thought was really cool too. So this is the Black Tarantula, and it was a one-shot. So it's feature presentations number 5. Even though it's a one-shot, it's still a one-shot. I'm not sure who did the cover. It's the only issue, becomes a feature presentation magazine afterwards. So, kind of a cool one. I'm not sure why it's number 5, but they did that a lot. Okay, I have 2 more to show, or 3 more to show. We got Voodoo number 14. Another one of these great skull covers. And when you're looking at Golden Age Precode horror things, a lot of the time people gravitate to the skull covers. And this one is from Feral, 1954. And it's just a really great one. I like the fact that it has like the good girl meets horror kind of cover. So just a really cool one. I'm not sure who did the cover though. Got 2 more to or 1 more to show. Actually, it's just really thick, so I didn't realize. And Strange Terrors. And this is just another good girl meets horror cover. So it's a really thick book. I'm not sure if you can see that. It's super thick. And it's basically 3 issues into one magazine, one comic. And just a really great bondage cover. Good girl with like red dress again. And it's a Lou Cameron cover. Just a really cool one. I'll show you the back too. So that's it. Those are, I couldn't show you, I mean, there's a ton more I could show. I have 2 boxes, like, which have about 200 comics each of Precode horror. And then I have another 30 or 40 slabs or more. I don't know, a bunch of Precode horror slabs. So I figured I'd just show these ones, give you a bit of a taste of Precode horror. I hope you like the ones that I showed. And thanks for all the questions, everyone. If you have a question that you want answered, put it in the comments below, and I will do my best to answer it. I'll try to be more like alive. It's been a long day, so I apologize for like my lack of energy, but I do try. And I hope you enjoyed this video regardless. And thanks again for watching. Bye for now.